What you're about to hear is the moment a member of Congress stopped playing nice, stopped pretending, and finally said what millions have been whispering for years. The country is being pulled apart by a man who broke his promises, and if no one steps up to check him, the entire system might snap with him. The chamber went silent, not because the words were harsh, but because they exposed a truth that's been hiding in plain sight. And this clash doesn't just rewrite political lines. It reveals what's really happening behind the scenes of the Epstein files battle, where victims are being dragged into a political storm instead of being protected.
Let's just take you at your word that Democrats said nothing. Is that a reason for you to do nothing? I don't understand the logic here that because you think the Democrats did nothing on the Epstein files in the Biden administration, that to own the libs, you now have license to leave sexual assault victims unprotected. It's just crazy that you hate the Democrats so much that you would let the most notorious child sex trafficker and the people connected to him not be held accountable because you want to own the libs. Let's just take you at your word. Okay, the Democrats did nothing. So you're going to do nothing is what you were telling me. The Democrats, of course, did not do nothing, but let me boil it down to a lesson that I have right in front of me every morning when a 6-year-old wakes me up around 5:45 and wants to watch the same movie over and over and over. That's Frozen. And there's a lesson in this film where Elsa is told by one of the trolls in the movie that if you can't see the future, all you can do is the next right thing. And having seen this, again, 100 times in the last couple years, my takeaway is if you don't know what's going to happen next and you can't change the past, all you can do is the next right thing. So even if you are right that the Democrats did nothing in the past, wouldn't the next right thing be to sign the discharge petition? Or are you so obsessed with just scoring political points that you would punish sexual assault victims? Is that who you are? I don't think that's who you are. When I listen to some of the legislation you propose on your side, I do believe sincerely you care about victims. And if that's who you are and you care about victims, sign the damn discharge petition. Okay, you can own us. I don't care. You can own us 1,000 times. If it gets us to 218 signatures, I will let you have whatever victory you think you're accomplishing. But it seems to me that you're more interested in telling me not to believe my own eyes, which is what the president is doing. The president is telling us not to believe our own eyes. And it's not just on the Epstein files and the birthday card. And by the way, guys, we can bring in a handwriting expert, but I have 2 eyes. And I know what that man's obnoxious signature looks like. And so do you. But Donald Trump has told us that he would end all wars on day one, that prices would plummet and jobs would soar. And where are we? Ukraine has never been weaker. We've never seen more jobs lost in America since Donald Trump was last president. Even conservatives are complaining about how expensive grocery prices are. And even his own health, he's trying to tell us not to believe our own eyes. Joe Biden looks like an Olympic athlete compared to a man who is hiding his illness. Donald Trump is a broken man who has broke his promises. And if we don't start checking him, we are going to be a broken country. So my friends, if you sincerely believe that Democrats dropped the ball and did not do enough under the Biden administration, then join us now in doing the next right thing and sign the discharge petition. Otherwise, you're telling sexual assault victims this is just about scoring political points, and they come last. I yield back.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield to the ranking member.
Well, just to add to your very eloquent statement there, it seems like these days every accusation is a confession. So the accusation is the Democrats have somehow changed their position. We've been opposed to child sex trafficking all along. We spoke out against it. I've introduced evidence to that effect. It's our friends across the aisle who've changed their position. They wanted to see the release of the Epstein files. Now that Donald Trump changed his mind, they've changed their minds. Thank you for yielding.
I would just claim 5 minutes. I would just point to the subpoena that Chairman Comer sent on August 5th of this year. And I'm just going to read it. Now, frankly, I'll ask unanimous consent to put it in the record here. In scheduled to subpoena, in accordance with the attached schedule instructions, you, the Honorable Pamela J. Bondi, in your capacity as Attorney General of the United States, are required to produce the following documents and communications that are in your possession, custody, or control in unredacted form, except for redactions to protect the personally identifiable information of any victims, for any child sex abuse materials defined by the Department of Justice manual, or any other redactions required by law. And then there are seven sections here. Number 1, all documents and communications relating or referring to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell, and further relating to or referring to trafficking, exploitation of minors, sexual abuse, or related activity. Number 2, all documents and communications contained within the case file regarding United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. Number 3, all documents and communications contained within the case file regarding United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell. Number 4, all documents and communications contained within the file pertaining to the investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. So this would answer what Mr. Raskin, I think, has raised real questions about multiple times in today's hearing. Number 5, all documents and communications relating or referring to United States versus Jeffrey Epstein, United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell, and the investigation of Mr. Epstein that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. Again, answering, I think, getting to the information that Mr. Raskin seeks. All documents, number 6, all documents and communications between the Executive Office of the President, including the Executive Office of President Joseph R. Biden Jr., and the Department of Justice relating to or referring to United States versus Jeffrey Epstein, United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell, and the investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. And number 7, all documents and communications relating to or referring to the death of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. So seven but different bullet points. Every single one starts with the word all. I think the gentleman from New York earlier said that this wouldn't get the documents that started. Yes, it would. This covers everything. And the Oversight Committee has subpoenaed all that information. And it's coming in. I think there's 30,000 pages coming in, but it's a rolling production. This is the typical the way it works. We've done a lot of investigations around here. It's always a rolling production. So I think we're going to get the material. That's Oversight Committee is doing it. It's unfortunate that Mr. Goldman made the comments he did about the very fine chairman of the Oversight Committee, but he is getting the information that the American people asked for and that many members had demanded for a long time, including.
What unfolds next shows exactly how far people are willing to go to avoid accountability, and how close Congress is to a breaking point of its own. He didn't start with policy or data. He started with a warning that the country is on the edge because someone who once promised everything delivered the opposite. And then he did something you almost never see on the House floor. He tied that failure directly to the fight over the Epstein files, not as a talking point, but as a test of character. He told his colleagues point blank, if you really care about victims, the next right step is obvious. Sign the discharge petition. Force the vote. Do something real. Because every excuse, every distraction, every attempt to own the libs while ignoring survivors, all of it sends a message. And it's not the message any moral leader should want next to their name. But the clash erupted because one side had a script prepared. They kept repeating the same question. Why didn't the other party act before? Like somehow inaction in the past gives them permission to sit on their hands today. That's where the argument fell apart. Because instead of backing down, he walked right through their logic. Even if the other side had done nothing, which he argued wasn't true, why use that as your reason to protect the most notorious predator of the century? Why weaponize past silence as justification for present cowardice? Why turn this into a scorecard battle when real survivors are waiting for answers? That question didn't land like a political jab. It landed like a moral indictment. Because you could see the discomfort ripple across the room. This wasn't about red versus blue. It wasn't about who spoke louder on cable news. It was about whether adults in power are willing to do something when victims need them, or whether they'd rather treat those victims like pieces on a political chessboard. And then he did something unexpected. He shifted from fire to softness. He talked about being woken up every morning by his 6-year-old wanting to watch Frozen for the 100th time. The room didn't know where he was going with it. But then he pulled out the message hidden inside the movie. When you can't change the past and you don't know the future, you do the next right thing. And suddenly, the point was obvious. He wasn't just calling them out. He was giving them a way out. A way to step up without losing face. A way to make the right move regardless of who did what years ago. The discharge petition wasn't humiliation, it was responsibility. And declining to sign, it wasn't strategy. It was choosing optics over survivors. But the conversation took a darker turn when he brought up something everyone in that room recognized instantly. The signature. The card. The moment when he said, "We can bring in experts, but I have 2 eyes. And I know what that signature looks like." You could feel the tension spike. Because that wasn't just about handwriting. It was about trust. About someone telling the country to ignore evidence sitting right in front of them. And he connected it to everything else. The wars he said would end instantly. The prices he said would drop. The jobs he said would boom. The strength he promised he still had. He said the American people were being told to doubt their own eyes. And when leaders ask you to doubt the obvious, that's when systems collapse. But here's where the debate shifted from frustration to something more strategic. The ranking member stepped in and said something that hit just as hard. These days, every accusation is a confession. Meaning, if they're accusing the other side of flip-flopping, maybe it's because they're the ones who flipped when the political winds changed. And he reminded the room. Many who once demanded the Epstein files be released suddenly went quiet the moment it became inconvenient. That silence wasn't principle. It was self-preservation. Then came the moment that would be clipped, replayed, and analyzed for hours. A member read aloud a subpoena, 7 sweeping demands for everything related to Epstein. Every document, every file, every communication, every note tied to the non-prosecution agreement, every record involving Maxwell, even documents connected to his death, and all of it directed at the current Attorney General. No narrow requests, no loopholes, no wiggle room. All documents. Repeated 7 times, he said tens of thousands of pages were already rolling in. A slow stream, but a steady one. Oversight was happening, but not nearly fast enough for victims, or for the public who had been promised transparency over and over again. And this is where most people watching the hearing missed the bigger picture. Because while politicians argued over who acted first, the real issue wasn't timing. It was access. What can legally be released? What must be redacted? What is sealed by courts? What protections apply to minors who were harmed? This isn't just bureaucracy, it's federal law. Grand jury records, victim identities, sealed testimony. None of that can be dumped online without risking additional harm. And yet, hiding behind those rules has become the perfect shield for the powerful. They point to legal barriers as if they have no options, when in reality Congress has multiple tools. Discharge petitions, subpoenas, motions to unseal, negotiated releases with redactions, judicial reviews, independent evaluators. There are pathways, but pathways only work when people choose to walk them. That's why the emotional core of this hearing wasn't about the shouting. It was about the question sitting under everything. Who is being protected? Victims or reputations? Because for years rumors have swirled that influential people across politics, finance, entertainment, and foreign governments appeared in the orbit of the case. Some claims are exaggerated, some are false, some are unverified. But the fact that the public doesn't know where the truth ends and the speculation begins is the real danger. Rumors fill the space created by secrecy. And secrecy thrives when institutions move slowly, cautiously, and defensively. Victims have said for years that transparency isn't optional. It's part of their healing. It's part of justice. And yet every delay, every deflection, every partisan stunt pushes them further into the shadows. That's why this hearing matters more than the shouting. It revealed something that's been simmering. Some lawmakers genuinely want the truth out. Others want the truth managed, controlled, released on a political timeline instead of a moral one. Because the moment these files are public, fully, responsibly, properly redacted, the shield that protected Epstein for decades collapses. And with it, the shield that protected anyone who enabled him, whether intentionally or by negligence. That's why this fight feels so tense. Someone in that stack of documents has something to lose. Maybe multiple people do. And that fear is being dressed up as procedural complexity. But clarity is coming. Not because the system wants it, but because public pressure is reaching a point where delay is becoming more dangerous than disclosure. Tens of thousands of pages in rolling production is just the start. More committees are pushing. More judges are being asked to review sealed material. More journalists are digging. Advocacy groups are demanding oversight, not headlines. Accountability is no longer a theoretical concept. It's inching closer every week, and that puts Congress in an uncomfortable position. If they don't act decisively now, the public will remember who stalled, who dodged, who hid behind legal language to avoid angering powerful allies. That's why this clash on the House floor wasn't accident or performance. It was a warning. A warning that the public is done accepting excuses. A warning that leaders who walk away from survivors will answer for it. A warning that the truth will surface whether people cooperate or not. And the final question hanging in the air, the one no one wanted to voice, is this. If this is how they behave when the cameras are on, what happens behind closed doors? Behind committee walls? Behind negotiations the public never sees? Because if accountability makes them this nervous in public, imagine what the private conversations sound like. This fight isn't about left or right. It's about whether institutions serve justice or self-interest, whether the public gets transparency or curated fragments, whether survivors are finally seen or sacrificed again. If you believe the truth belongs to the people, if you think victims deserve better than political theater, if you want deeper breakdowns of major hearings like this, then do one thing right now. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Like the video to push this into the algorithm so more people see what's really going on. And share it with someone who thinks these hearings don't matter, because they matter more than ever. And if this moment rattled Congress this much, just imagine what the next one will reveal.